Hi there, it's Ian here, and you're watching Grumpy Opinions, the show where I'm going to tell you all about what I think of films, TV shows, games, and life in general. Let's get on with the show. So after the previous two episodes, where he had to shoot his way to a Yoda puppy and then have a fight with a big beastie for an egg, Mandy the lion can finally get himself home, so he can hand in the bogey baby and get some cash. What could possibly go wrong? And just a wee reminder, folks, it helps me out an awful lot if you subscribe to this channel, or share it with your pals, or tweet it, or whatever. And you can follow me on Twitter at Grumpy Opinions. The Mandalorian, Chapter 3, The Sin, starts out with Mandy getting back to the planet, whatever it's called, and Dylan from Predator sends him a wee message and says, yeah, go straight to the Empire guys and you're gold, or silver, or Beskar steel if we're being accurate. And the Empire goons are sort of like, yeah, well done, here's some stuff, we'll take Bubba Yods away and give him a whole road trip cooler full of ingots of Beskar, which is like steel. And he's happy with that, but he asks about the Bubba, and that's apparently a big no-no, you're not supposed to do that if you're a bounty hunter. So, he goes home and he drops his metal off with a blacksmith lassie, and all his other Mandy pals come in, and one starts giving him a bit of grief about this being Imperial Beskar, because it was stolen during the Purge, and they have a bit of roughhousing, and then their mum tells them off, and everything's fine now. Anyway, Mandy gets a whole load of new gear from that quest bonus, and while she's making it, he ends up getting flashbacks of again from before, his folks getting killed by Trade Federation droids. And back at the bar, he's in his shiny new duds, and he takes a new job off Dylan, who's all kinds of chuffed because he made so much bank on that mission, and everyone else is kind of annoyed because it turns out they all had fobs for that contract as well. But then he asks about the Bubba, and Dylan's like, nah mate, we're not supposed to do that, guild rules say forget about it, just walk away, so just go and do this other job. So that's what he does for about a minute, and then he turns back and he scouts the place and he overhears the Empire guys talking about Baba Yoda and extracting some kind of material. Oh aye. So he chaps on the door, and then he goes and blows up the back wall, and he does a full Splinter Cell all the way through killing stormtroopers, and then he finds the weedy guy and he's like, please don't hurt the baby, I'm the one who's trying to keep it alive. So Mandy's like, that's strange, and lets him live. And then he gets about 10 feet down the street, and then all the fobs reactivate, and pretty much every single bounty hunter in town's out to get him, and it turns into a massive big shooting fight, and he's pinned down, and suddenly all the other Mandys pop up and start laying waste to all the bads, and he's just about to get away when Dylan pops up at his spaceship. Mandy gets the shot in first and flies away. Dylan though, he might be down, but he's not out. So what did I think? Well, I'm going to set it up straight. I think this is the best episode so far. I think while episode 1's kind of a clumsy setup and a detour with a grumpy guy and a blob and then a bit of a nifty shootout at the end, and then episode 2 was kind of a load of pointless filler with that fun wee tank chase and the kind of underwhelming monster fight, this is actually the first episode where I'm starting to actually get into it and really care about what's going on. To start with, we got so much more background on the Mandalorians. Yeah, it turns out they don't take their helmets off. I did a bit of background reading, and it turns out that Jango Fett isn't actually a Mandalorian. He was a guy who was brought in, but then he kind of left, but he kept his armor. So that's why you see him without his helmet on in the films. And it must make a showering an awful pain in the bum for them, and they probably don't kiss much. But anyway, these guys, they have a warrior's code, and they're kind of a proud race of almost samurai kind of guys. And we get this fantastic scene where you totally believe this situation. It is a little bit cheesy, but all these guys hanging around and just doing their thing, it felt real. It felt the script actually made sense. Again, it never stops being cheesy, but it feels lived in at this point. And I also got the sense that the bounty hunters have this code they live by, because otherwise how would they get by? They've got guild rules, and that's why you don't break the guild rules, because they need a rule set, and you have to adhere to that, or maybe, I don't know, you get killed, or you get sacked, or maybe you just get thrown out of the guild or something, you can't get jobs. I also like that they're starting to get a feel for Mandy and who he is. It's only a little bit, but it's a start, and for a dude in a huge helmet and armor, I like the fact that they actually did this wee scene where it conveyed some emotions like it was supposed to, without him really having to do all that much. That's the point of getting a good actor and then sticking him in a giant helmet and stuff. And the action this week, it was also pretty damn good. We saw that the Mandalorian is supposed to be really amazing and tough, but also clever, and he plans ahead. This isn't like the dopey guy from episode 1 and 2 who got falls to pieces every time you put an animal near him. Up against humanoid bad guys, he's like a total ninja Batman Terminator guy. Stalking around the dark rooms killing stormtroopers and stuff. And not just using the funky homing shots. He's clever. We saw that he used the carbonate freezing thing to create a smoke screen. That's a clever move. And I know I said this last week, but at $15 million an episode, this should look amazing. But it does. The effects are great. Everything looks seamless. The spaceships look real. Everything looks like it's actually there. Whether it's, a puppet or a CGI background or a spaceship or something, it actually just looks like they went and filmed it. And that's great. And that's how things should look. And it sounds fantastic as well. It's just a shame that the story and the script don't quite live up to it. So yeah, I mean, I'm still just not that impressed by the writing on this show. It's still kind of languishing on like a line-to-line basis, and that same unsubtle, clunky nonsense that it was in week one. Right? See, there's like this bit here where like Werner Herzog has to actually remind the bounty hunter of the bounty hunter code in a really obvious way. I mean, this is classic bad writing 101. Like, literally, have characters say things to each other that they should both know already, and like because essentially you're telling the audience. I mean, it could have handled better if they'd done it like a proper conversation. I mean, compare that to the conversation between, Mandy and Dylan. I mean, that just felt much more real. It felt much more sensible. And I also feel part of the problem of this is that the Mandalorian has so few lines that it's really hard to actually get a sense of things. So you've got to have everyone else spelling everything out in really blunt, stupid detail, and it comes across as really twee and cheesy. And the same nonsense when they were in like Helmet Land, hanging out with all his pals, the Mandalorians, and they're trying to do like this discount sort of Klingon stuff. And I didn't actually mind that. I liked the fact that, it made some sense. But what bugged me about it wasn't even the dialogue. It's that in a 35-minute show, they did that whole scene, and then they decided to have another big bit of like sheet metal beating and flashbacks and blacksmith stuff with flashbacks and they did that 2 episodes ago, and it was boring and felt like time wasting then. And now it feels more boring and more time wasting. And yeah, we're getting a bit more of the story, and I'm sure it's going to be one of these ones where they every few episodes they pay out a little bit more of this flashback stuff until we know exactly what happened. And it's not new. It's been done. It's something that's been done to death in loads of other things. But I'm also kind of a wee bit graty about how they've done this Western thing. Maybe you've not seen all this stuff, but you know how Star Wars did its shtick with Han Solo being a space cowboy, basically. That's what he is. He's a space cowboy. And quite a few other properties took this idea and ran with it. I mean, there's a very famous cartoon called Cowboy Bebop that does this, but more importantly, there's a wee show that you've never heard of, maybe you have, called Firefly. Right? Firefly isn't perfect. And I'm being silly here because I'm sure everyone's seen Firefly. But Firefly does westerns, but kind of futuristic, sort of. Is it Western punk? I don't know. Is that what it's called? Is that a thing? But Firefly doesn't cram down your throat in every silly and obvious way. At least most of the time it doesn't. It has its moments. But The Mandalorian just does it all the time. It's so in love with the fact that it's a Western in space that it doesn't seem to realize it's also meant to be all the other things that Star Wars did. Because Star Wars wasn't just about Han Solo, it was also about the Jedi, who were space samurai crusader knights, and also World War II flying things. It was a mix of loads of different stuff, but this isn't. I mean, put it this way, you've got a saloon scene, you've got a learning a horse ride scene, you've got a shot from every other Western ever, you've got the bit where they take out like what would be normally a wee Mexican bandito base, and you've got this bit where they're in another saloon, and then you've got the big shootout in the street where he literally hides in a cart while shooting all the bads. It's literally everything that's been done in every other Western ever. And, Westerns have been done to death. They've been done in comedies, and they've been done post-apocalyptic sci-fi films, and pretty much everything has taken that idea. Hell, I mean, neo-Westerns is the new thing at the moment, where you take the concept of a Western and apply it to modern day stuff. I mean, things like Sicario or like Wind River. But this is actually like Star Wars, where we know it's meant to be an element of that, but that's never been the sole element. And here it's everything, it's swamping absolutely everything. And I mean, these are minor quibbles, really, because it's still a fun show, but I really want this show to be more than just fun. I want it to surprise me. And currently it's been really kind of predictable. And the last thing I'll mention, even more than the previous episodes, this feels totally like a computer game. I was on about him having side quests and stuff and time wasting. Now, this week felt like the bit in a computer game where somebody finishes a side quest and you go back to your main town or whatever, or your base, and you hand in the side quest and they give you they say, well done for doing that, here's your reward. And they give you like a new gun or a new bow and arrow or a suit of armor. And literally in this case, he's come back from his mission and he's been given a funky new suit of armor as an upgrade. I mean, come on, is it just me who sees this? I mean, still, as I said, I don't hate it. It's a decent show. But for $15 million an episode for a bit of throwaway disposable fluff with space cowboys, you think they maybe could have afforded a few decent writers to brush the script into selling a little bit less basic bantha. So yeah, till next time, I've been Ian, and these have been my grumpy opinions.